My dear brothers and sisters, never underestimate what happens when a believer raises their hands and speaks to Allah. Never think your words are falling into empty space. When you pray, you are speaking to the one who controls the heavens and the earth, the one who says be and it is. Pray until something happens. Sometimes we pray once, twice, and when we don't see immediate results, we quietly give up. But faith was never meant to be a one-time action. Prayer is persistence. Prayer is patience. Prayer is proof that you trust Allah more than you trust the situation in front of you. You may be asking for relief, yet relief seems delayed. You may be begging for ease, yet life feels heavier. Remember this, a delay is not a rejection. Allah is too merciful to ignore a sincere heart. He hears every whisper, every tear that falls in sujood, every silent dua made at night when no one else knows your pain. Sometimes Allah delays the answer because He wants you to return to Him again and again and again. Every time you return, you rise in status. Every prayer cleanses the heart. Every sajda brings you closer than you were before. Pray until something happens. And understand, sometimes what happens is not what you expected. You asked for a door to open, but instead Allah gave you strength to be patient. You asked for the storm to stop, but He taught you how to walk through it with dignity and faith. You asked for change around you, but Allah changed you. And that was the real miracle. Never stop praying because life is hard. Pray especially when life is hard. That difficulty may be the very reason Allah wants to hear from you more. The pain that pushed you to your prayer mat might be the greatest gift you never asked for. Tie your camel, make effort, do your part. Then place your trust completely in Allah. True reliance is not passive. It is active worship combined with deep certainty that Allah will choose what is best even if you don't see it yet. Pray until something happens. And know this with full conviction, no dua is wasted. It is either answered exactly as you asked, delayed for a better time, replaced with something better, or saved for you in the hereafter, where you will wish none of your prayers had been answered in this world. So don't lose hope. Don't lower your hands. Don't say, I've prayed enough. As long as you are breathing, the door of Allah is open. Pray and keep praying until something happens. May Allah grant us hearts that never lose hope, tongues that never stop calling upon Him, and certainty that He is always closer than we think. Ameen. When we speak about dua, many people treat it like a transaction. They see it as a list of requests. I need this, I want that, fix this problem for me. And when the request is not fulfilled immediately, the heart feels heavy and the tongue grows silent. But dua was never meant to be reduced to a shopping list. Dua is first and foremost an act of worship. It is a declaration of your belief, your humility, and your absolute dependence on Allah. When you raise your hands, you are not just asking for something, you are admitting something. You are admitting that you are weak, that you do not control outcomes, that you are not self-sufficient, no matter how strong or intelligent you think you are. In that moment, you are saying, "Oh Allah, I need you." And that admission alone is beloved to Allah. In a world that teaches people to rely on themselves, dua teaches the believer to rely on the Creator. Every dua is worship because it is built on sincerity. You cannot make a true dua with arrogance. You cannot sincerely call upon Allah while believing you don't need Him. The very act softens the heart. It humbles the soul. It reminds you of your place and Allah's greatness. That is why even if your dua seems unanswered, it is still rewarded. Worship is not judged by visible results. It is judged by obedience and intention. Sometimes Allah gives you what you ask for and you smile. Other times He withholds it and you feel confused. But what we often forget is that Allah has already given you something far greater in that moment, a direct connection with Him. You spoke to the King of Kings without an appointment, without a barrier, without a mediator. How many people on earth can say they have access to the most powerful figures at any moment? Yet the believer has access to Allah at all times. That alone should make dua priceless. Dua is worship because it keeps you spiritually alive. When a person stops making dua, it is often a sign of spiritual exhaustion or misplaced confidence. The heart begins to rely on means instead of the one who controls the means. But the believer understands that effort without dua is arrogance, and dua without effort is laziness. True worship is balancing both, while knowing that success only comes from Allah. There is also mercy hidden in unanswered dua. Sometimes Allah knows that what you are asking for would harm you, weaken your faith or distract you from your purpose. So He protects you by not giving it. Other times He delays it because He loves hearing your voice. Imagine that. The Creator of the heavens loves when His servant calls upon Him repeatedly. Each time you ask, you are rewarded, not only for patience, but for worship. Dua is worship because it trains the heart to hope correctly. It teaches you not to attach your heart to people, wealth, status, or circumstances. People disappoint. Circumstances change. But Allah never disappoints, even when the answer looks different from what you expected. When you understand this, your dua becomes calmer. You still ask with passion, but you accept with peace. Some people only make dua when they are desperate. That is good, but it is not complete. The believer makes dua in ease as much as in hardship. Not only asking, but thanking. Not only requesting, but praising. Because worship is not just about taking, it is about recognizing who Allah is in your life at all times. And never think that your dua needs perfect words. Allah is not impressed by eloquence, He is moved by sincerity. A broken sentence from a broken heart is more powerful than a rehearsed speech without feeling. Whisper if you must, cry if you need to, sit silently if words fail you. Allah understands even what you cannot express. So when you make dua, don't measure it only by whether something changed around you. Measure it by what changed within you. Did your heart soften? Did your faith increase? Did you feel closer to Allah than before? If yes, then your dua was already answered in the most meaningful way. That is why we say dua is not just a request, it is worship. And as long as you are worshipping Allah sincerely, you are already winning. Even before anything happens, one of the greatest tests of faith is not hardship itself, but waiting. Waiting while you continue to pray. Waiting while you continue to trust. Waiting while nothing around you seems to change. In those moments, the heart begins to question, if Allah hears me, why is nothing happening? This is where we must understand a powerful truth. Delay is not denial. Allah's silence is not rejection, and His timing is never wrong. We often want answers immediately because we see life through a very narrow lens. We see the present moment, the pain we feel now, the urgency we experience today. But Allah sees the entire picture. He sees where you came from, where you are, and where you are going. He sees what that answer would do to your heart, your faith, and your future. So when Allah delays, it is not because He is unaware, and it is not because He does not care. It is because His wisdom is far greater than our understanding. Think about how many things you once wanted desperately, things you begged for, and later realized they would have harmed you or taken you away from Allah. At the time, the delay felt painful. Now in hindsight, it feels like protection. That is how Allah works, quietly, gently, and always in your best interest, even when you cannot see it yet. A believer understands that Allah does not operate on our schedules. We live by clocks and calendars. Allah controls time itself. What feels like a long wait to you may be a moment in the divine plan. And sometimes Allah delays an answer because He is preparing you for it. The blessing you are asking for may require growth, patience, or maturity that you do not yet have. If it were given too soon, it might overwhelm you or distract you from your purpose. Delay also serves to purify intention. When the answer does not come quickly, you are forced to ask yourself, why am I praying? Am I only turning to Allah for results, or because I truly believe in Him? When dua continues even without visible change, it becomes sincere worship rather than conditional faith. That persistence is beloved to Allah. There are moments when Allah delays because He wants to give you something better. You may be asking for one door to open, but Allah knows that behind another door is far more goodness for you. Goodness you would never reach if the first door opened too soon. So He keeps it closed, not to hurt you, but to guide you. Sometimes the delay is meant to bring you closer to Allah. If everything was granted, instantly many hearts would forget Him the moment He's arrived. But when you wait, you return to Allah again and again. Your dua becomes deeper. Your reliance becomes stronger. Your relationship with Allah grows, and that relationship is far more valuable than the answer you were originally seeking. We must also remember that Allah responds in different ways. An answer may come in a form you did not recognize. You asked for relief, and Allah gave you patience. You asked for success, and Allah gave you resilience. You asked for ease, and Allah removed something harmful from your life instead. Just because the answer did not match your expectation does not mean it was absent. The delay teaches us humility. It reminds us that we are servants, not controllers. That we submit to Allah's will even when it engages our desires. True faith is not believing only when things go your way. It is trusting Allah even when they do not. It is saying, "Oh Allah, I trust you more than I trust my own understanding." And there is another reality we often forget. Some answers are saved for the hereafter. On the day of judgment, when a believer sees the reward for the dua that went unanswered in this world, they will wish none of their prayers had been answered here. What felt like silence was actually mercy stored for a time when it matters most. So do not rush Allah, do not lose hope, do not abandon dua. Just because the wait is long, continue to knock on the door of Allah, because a door that is delayed is still a door that belongs to Him. And a door in Allah's control is never closed forever. Trust the timing, trust the wisdom, trust the one who loves you more than you love yourself. Because when Allah delays, it is never to deprive you. It is always to give you what is best at the best time. Consistency in prayer is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about showing up to your prayer mat again and again, even when the heart feels heavy, even when motivation is low, even when life feels overwhelming. This consistency slowly builds a faith that cannot be shaken by circumstances, because it is rooted not in emotions, but in commitment to Allah. When a person prays only when they feel inspired, their faith rises and falls with their mood. But when a person prays consistently, regardless of how they feel, their faith becomes stable. That stability is what protects the heart during trials. Life will always have ups and downs, but prayer becomes the constant that anchors the believer. No matter how chaotic the world becomes, the prayer mat remains a place of peace and grounding. Consistency in prayer trains the heart to turn to Allah first, not last. Many people try every possible solution before they pray seriously, and only when everything fails do they raise their hands. But a consistent worshipper develops a different reflex. When something goes wrong, they pray. When something goes right, they pray. Prayer becomes their language with Allah in every situation, not just an emergency response. Over time, consistent prayer reshapes the inner world of a believer. It softens the heart, disciplines the soul, and sharpens awareness of Allah in daily life. Sins begin to feel heavier, not because of fear alone, but because the heart does not want to damage the connection it has built. Good deeds feel sweeter because they align with a heart already inclined toward obedience. This is how faith becomes deeply rooted, not superficial. Consistency also teaches patience. There will be days when prayer feels rushed, distracted, or dry. There will be moments when you stand in salah and your mind wanders, your worries intrude, and your focus feels weak. But showing up despite that is part of the worship. Allah does not ask for flawless concentration every time. He asks for sincerity and effort. Each imperfect prayer still counts. Each attempt still builds your relationship with Him. When prayer is consistent, it becomes a shield. A person who guards their prayers is guarded by Allah in ways they may never notice. They are protected from decisions that would harm them, from paths that would lead them away from Allah, from habits that would slowly destroy their peace. This protection is not always dramatic or visible, but it is powerful. Many calamities are diverted quietly through consistent worship. Unshakable faith is not built overnight. It is built through thousands of small moments of obedience that no one sees but Allah. Waking up for Fajr when sleep feels heavy. Pausing your day for Salah when work is demanding. Turning to Allah at night when the world is silent. These moments accumulate, shaping a heart that trusts Allah deeply because it has walked with Him consistently. Consistency in prayer also changes how a believer views hardship. When trials come, they do not immediately panic or collapse. Their heart has been trained to seek Allah regularly, so turning to Him during difficulty feels natural. They may still feel pain, fear, or sadness, but beneath those emotions is a calm certainty that Allah is in control. That certainty is the result of a relationship built over time, not a sudden realization. Even when prayers are not answered in the way a person hopes, consistency prevents despair. The believer understands that their duty is to pray, not to dictate outcomes. They trust that Allah sees their effort and hears every word, even if the answer is delayed or different. This trust keeps the heart firm when others lose hope. And perhaps one of the greatest fruits of consistent prayer is that it reminds you who you are in a world that constantly tells you to define yourself by success, status, or possessions. Prayer reminds you that you are a servant of Allah. That identity brings peace, clarity, and dignity. no matter how the world treats you, you know where you stand with your Creator. So do not underestimate the power of showing up daily. Even when your prayer feels small, it is powerful in the sight of Allah. Even when your faith feels weak, consistency is strengthening it quietly. One day you will look back and realize that it was not one dramatic moment that built your faith. It was the simple, repeated act of turning to Allah that made your heart unbreakable. Hardship has a way of exposing what comfort often hides. When life is smooth, many hearts become distracted, self-satisfied and distant without realizing it. But when difficulty arrives, when plans collapse and strength feels insufficient, the heart suddenly looks upward. This is why hardship is so often the doorway to closeness with Allah. Not because pain itself is good, but because it strips away illusions and returns the servant to their true position. In moments of ease, it is easy to feel independent. You plan, you work, you achieve, and slowly the heart begins to rely on effort more than on Allah. But hardship breaks that false sense of control. It reminds you that no matter how capable you are, there are limits you cannot cross without Allah's help. And in that realization, humility is born. That humility is precious in the sight of Allah. When hardship enters your life, it does not mean Allah has turned away from you. Very often it means He wants you closer. He wants you to speak to Him more honestly, more desperately, more consistently. Many people discover the sweetness of dua not during their happiest days, but during their darkest nights. Tears that fall in hardship soften the heart in ways comfort never could. Hardship also clears the noise. When life becomes difficult, distractions lose their power. Things that once seemed important suddenly feel small. The heart begins to ask deeper questions. Why am I here? What truly matters? Where is my relationship with Allah? These questions are signs of awakening. They mark the beginning of a more meaningful connection with your Creator. Sometimes Allah uses hardship to pull a servant away from something that was quietly harming them. A relationship, a habit, a path, or even a dream that would have taken them further from Allah. If that thing had continued, the heart may have grown attached to it, forgetting Allah in the process. So Allah intervenes not out of anger, but out of mercy. The pain of separation becomes the bridge back to Him. Hardship also teaches sincerity. When everything is going well, gratitude can be casual and shallow. But when you are struggling and still say, "Oh Allah, I trust you," that trust is real. It is not spoken from comfort, but from conviction. Allah loves that sincerity. He loves when a servant turns to Him not because life is perfect, but because they believe He is worthy of worship in all circumstances. Through hardship, Allah reshapes priorities. You begin to value prayer more. You cherish moments of peace. You recognize blessings you once overlooked. Health, faith, and the ability to turn to Allah become treasures rather than assumptions. This shift in perspective is a form of guidance. And guidance is one of the greatest gifts Allah gives to a servant. Closeness to Allah does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels like quiet strength. You still hurt, but you are no longer lost. You still struggle, but you are not hopeless. That inner steadiness is the fruit of turn into Allah during hardship. It is a calm certainty that whatever happens, you are not alone. Hardship also builds compassion. A heart that has suffered becomes softer toward others. You become more patient, more understanding, more gentle. You recognize pain in people that you once ignored. In this way, hardship refines character and brings the servant closer not only to Allah, but to His creation as well. And then there is the reward. Every moment of hardship borne with patience, every tear shed in sincerity, every prayer made in difficulty is recorded. Nothing is wasted. What feels heavy in this world will feel light when its reward is revealed. What felt like loss may turn out to be the greatest gain. So when hardship comes, do not assume it is a sign of distance from Allah. It may be the very invitation you needed to return to Him fully. Walk through that doorway with patience and trust. Speak to Allah openly. Lean on Him completely. Because many hearts only discover true closeness to Allah when everything else falls away. And in that closeness, they find a peace that hardship itself cannot take away. Tawakkul is often misunderstood. Some people think it means sitting back, doing nothing, and waiting for things to magically fall into place. Others think it means relying entirely on their own effort and calling that trust in Allah. True tawakkul stands in the middle. It is tying your camel with sincerity and then placing your heart completely in the hands of Allah, knowing that outcomes are never controlled by effort alone. Allah created a world of causes and effects, and He commanded us to engage with them. Effort is part of worship. Planning is part of responsibility. Taking action is part of faith. When you work hard, seek solutions, and make informed decisions, you are not lacking trust in Allah. You are obeying Him. Tawakkul begins after effort, not instead of it. At the same time, tawakkul frees the heart from anxiety. You do what you can to the best of your ability, and then you release the outcome to Allah. This is where many hearts struggle. They plan, they work, they try, and then they panic. They replay scenarios, fear failure, and carry a heavy burden of worry. True tawakkul removes that weight. You remind yourself that you are responsible for effort, not results. Trusting Allah does not mean you will always feel calm. It means that even when fear arises, you do not let it control you. You acknowledge your concern, then you hand it over to Allah. You say, "Oh Allah, I have done what I can. Now I trust you to do what I cannot." That statement alone brings peace to the heart. Tawakkul also teaches acceptance. Sometimes despite your best effort, things do not go as planned. Doors close, opportunities disappear, results fall short of expectations. Without tawakkul, this leads to bitterness and self-blame. With tawakkul, it leads to reflection and growth. You understand that Allah chose a different outcome, not because your effort was worthless, but because His wisdom demanded something else. There is great dignity in tawakkul. It protects the believer from humiliation before people. When your heart relies on Allah, you are not broken by people's approval or crushed by their rejection. You still value effort and feedback, but your sense of worth is rooted in your relationship with Allah, not in outcomes or opinions. Tawakkul also strengthens resilience. A person who trusts Allah fully does not give up easily. When they fall, they get back up. When they fail, they try again. They understand that setbacks are not signs of abandonment, but part of a longer journey. This mindset keeps the heart hopeful and the soul moving forward. Trusting Allah does not mean ignoring emotions. You may feel disappointed when things do not work out. You may feel tired after trying for a long time. Tawakkul does not erase those feelings, it guides them. Instead of turning into despair, emotions are redirected into dua, patience, and renewed effort. There is also humility in tawakkul. You recognize that intelligence, resources, and strength are gifts from Allah. Without His permission, none of them can produce results. This awareness keeps success from turning into arrogance and failure from turning into despair. Both are met with gratitude and patience. Tawakkul transforms how you view success. Success is no longer just getting what you want. It is pleasing Allah through sincere effort and trust. If the outcome matches your hopes, you are grateful. If it does not, you are content, knowing that Allah chose what was better for you in ways you may not yet understand. And perhaps the most beautiful part of tawakkul is the peace it brings. The heart learns to rest even while striving. You work hard, but you sleep at night. You plan carefully, but you do not obsess. You aim high, but you remain grounded. That balance is a gift from Allah to those who truly trust Him. So tie your camel carefully. Do your part with excellence and sincerity. Then lift your hands and place the rest with Allah. Because when effort, and trust walk together, the heart becomes strong, the soul becomes calm, and the believer moves through life with confidence that whatever comes next is under the care of the most merciful. One of the hardest lessons for the heart to accept is that sometimes Allah does not change the situation right away because He is changing you first. We often focus so intensely on what we want to be different around us that we overlook what needs to be transformed within us. Yet Allah in His wisdom knows that if the inner world is not prepared, any external change will either be wasted or become a burden rather than a blessing. When you make dua for a problem to end, you are sincere. When you ask for ease, you are hopeful. But Allah may see that your heart, your patience, your priorities, or your reliance on Him need refinement before that ease arrives. So instead of removing the difficulty, He works on you through it. This process is subtle. You may not notice it day by day, but over time you realize you are not the same person you were when the test began. Sometimes Allah uses a delay to build strength in you that you did not know you had. At the beginning of a trial, you may feel overwhelmed, fragile, and unsure. You wonder how you will survive if things continue this way. But as days pass and you keep turning to Allah, something shifts. You become more resilient. Your faith deepens. Your ability to cope expands. The situation may still be there, but you are no longer as shaken by it. That growth is an answer in itself. At other times, Allah is reshaping your perspective. What once felt like the end of the world slowly becomes something you can carry with patience. You begin to see lessons where you once saw only pain. You begin to recognize blessings that were hidden behind the struggle. This change in perception is powerful. It allows you to move forward with clarity instead of resentment, and with gratitude instead of constant complaint. Allah may also be changing your relationship with Him. Many people turn to Allah during hardship with urgency, but then drift away when ease returns. When Allah wants a servant closer for longer, He allows the test to remain while the connection grows. Dua becomes more sincere. Salah becomes more meaningful. The heart becomes more aware of Allah throughout the day. When the situation eventually changes, the relationship remains, and that is the true success. There are moments when Allah changes your priorities through difficulty. Things you once chased lose their shine. Things you neglected become central. You begin to value faith, character, and inner peace over status, approval, or material gain. Without the trial, you might never have slowed down enough to reassess your direction. In this way, what felt like a setback was actually guidance. Sometimes Allah is healing wounds within you that you did not even realize were there. Pain has a way of bringing buried emotions to the surface. Fear, insecurity, dependence on others, or attachment to outcomes. As you struggle, you are forced to confront these inner realities. With dua and reflection, healing begins. The heart becomes cleaner, stronger, and more balanced. When Allah finally changes the situation, you are healthier on the inside than you were before it began. It is also important to understand that some blessings require a certain level of maturity. What you are asking for may be good, but receiving it too early could lead to arrogance, negligence, or spiritual decline. So Allah delays not to punish, but to prepare. He shapes your patience, your gratitude, and your humility so that when the blessing arrives, it brings you closer to Him instead of pulling you away. This process can be frustrating because we are results oriented. We want visible change. We want clear signs, but Allah often works quietly within the heart. He replaces panic with calm. He replaces bitterness with acceptance. He replaces desperation with trust. These changes may not be celebrated by the world, but they are deeply valued by Allah. When you realize that Allah is changing you, the wait becomes more meaningful. You stop asking only, when will this end? And begin asking, what is Allah teaching me? That question transforms patience into purpose. It allows you to move through difficulty with awareness rather than confusion. And when the change finally comes, when the door opens, the burden lifts, or the chapter closes, you look back and understand. You see that if Allah had answered you immediately, you would not have been ready. You would have missed the growth, the closeness, and the wisdom gained along the way. You realize that Allah was answering you all along, just not in the way you expected. So if you are still waiting, do not assume nothing is happening. Look within. Notice how your heart has changed, how your faith has deepened, how your reliance on Allah has grown. That transformation may be the most important answer of all. Because when Allah changes you, He prepares you not just for a better situation, but for a better life, with Him at the center. Many people measure the value of dua by one standard alone. Did I get exactly what I asked for, exactly when I wanted it? When the answer appears in that form, faith feels strong. When it does not, disappointment creeps in. But this way of thinking limits our understanding of how Allah responds. Answered prayers come in different forms, and recognizing those forms changes frustration into trust and confusion into peace. Sometimes Allah answers a dua directly and clearly. You ask for something specific and it is granted. The door opens, the problem resolves, the relief arrives. This is the answer people hope for, and it is indeed a blessing. But even in this form, it is important to recognize Allah's favor and remain humble, because ease can test faith just as hardship does. At other times, Allah answers by delaying. This delay is not empty space, it is filled with wisdom. During the wait, Allah may be protecting you, preparing you, or redirecting you. What you ask for may come later, at a time when it benefits you more. The delay itself becomes part of the answer, shaping your patience and strengthening your reliance on Allah. There are also moments when Allah answers by giving you something different from what you asked for, something better. You may ask for one opportunity and Allah closes it, only to open another that brings more goodness. Even if it looks less appealing at first, you may ask for something to stay, and Allah removes it to make room for peace, growth, or protection. What feels like loss can in reality be mercy disguised as disappointment. Sometimes the answer to a dua is internal rather than external. You asked for a problem to go away, but Allah gives you patience. You asked for ease, and Allah gives you strength. You asked for success, and Allah gives you clarity and resilience. The situation may remain, but you are no longer the same person within it. That inner change is a powerful answer, even if it does not look like one at first. There are also prayers that Allah answers by preventing harm. You may never know how many calamities were diverted because of a dua you made sincerely, accidents that never happened, paths you were blocked from, people who drifted out of your life before causing harm. These silent answers go unnoticed, but they are among the greatest forms of Allah's care. Some dua are answered by being saved for the hereafter. This is a reality that reshapes everything. On the day of judgment, when the believer sees the reward for prayers that seemed unanswered in this world, they will wish that none of their dua had been fulfilled here. What you asked for with sincerity was not ignored. It was preserved for a time when its value would be far greater. Understanding these different forms of answers requires trust. It requires believing that Allah is not just responding, but responding wisely. The problem is not that Allah fails to answer, it is that we often fail to recognize His answers. We expect one shape, one outcome, one timeline, and when it does not match, we assume silence. This understanding also protects the heart from despair. When you know that every sincere dua is answered in some way, you do not feel foolish for praying. You do not feel rejected when the outcome is different. Instead, you remain hopeful and consistent, confident that Allah is dealing with your affairs in the best possible way. Answered prayers in different forms also teach gratitude. You begin to thank Allah not only for what He gives, but for what He withholds. You thank Him for doors He closes, for delays He places, for strength He grants, and for protection you never see. Gratitude expands beyond visible blessings to include hidden mercy. This perspective deepens your relationship with Allah. Dua becomes less about control and more about connection. You still ask with hope and sincerity, but you surrender the outcome with peace. You learn to say, "Oh Allah, give me what is best for me, even if it is not what I think I want." That level of trust transforms the heart. When you live with this understanding, you stop counting prayers as successes or failures. You see every dua as an act of worship that brings you closer to Allah, regardless of the outcome. You continue to ask, continue to hope, and continue to trust, knowing that Allah's response is always wrapped in mercy. So when you pray, do not limit Allah's answer to your expectations. Open your heart to the many ways He responds. Because whether the answer comes as a gift, a delay, a redirection, a protection, or a reward in the hereafter, it is always an answer, and it is always for your good. Hope in Allah is not a feeling that comes and goes with circumstances. It is a belief that settles deep in the heart and refuses to leave, even when everything around seems dark. When we say hope in Allah should never expire, we are saying that no matter how long the night becomes, the believer is convinced that dawn is possible by the permission of Allah. Many people lose hope not because their situation is impossible, but because time has passed. They prayed, they waited, they tried, and nothing seemed to change. Slowly, disappointment whispers to the heart, telling it to stop expecting good. But losing hope in Allah is far more dangerous than the problem itself. Situations can change in a moment, but a heart that gives up closes the door to that change. Allah is not limited by timelines, patterns, or past failures. What did not happen for years can happen in a single moment if Allah wills it. What seems broken beyond repair can be restored in ways you never imagined. Hope keeps the heart open to these possibilities. Despair, on the other hand, convinces you that Allah's mercy has an expiration date, and that is never true. Hope in Allah is an act of worship. It reflects good expectation of Him, and Allah responds to His servants according to how they think of Him. When you expect mercy, you move toward mercy. When you expect goodness, you prepare your heart to receive it. Even when you are afraid, hope balances that fear and prevents it from turning into despair. This does not mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. Hope can exist alongside tears. You can be exhausted and still hopeful. You can feel broken and still believe that Allah is capable of healing you. Hope is not denial of hardship. It is trust that hardship is not the end of the story. Sometimes hope fades because people compare their journey to others. They see someone else's prayers answered quickly while they are still waiting. This comparison poisons the heart. Allah's plan for each soul is unique. Delay in one life and ease in another do not reflect favoritism but wisdom. Holding on to hope means trusting that your path, with all its twists, is leading you exactly where Allah wants you to be. Hope also protects you from turning away from Allah when life is heavy. A hopeless heart stops praying, stops asking, and slowly disconnects. But a hopeful heart keeps calling upon Allah, even if the words are tired, even if the voice trembles. That persistence is beloved to Allah. One of the most powerful sources of hope is remembering who Allah is. He is the most merciful, the most capable, the one who brings life from what seems dead. He turns weakness into strength and loss into gain. When you reflect on His names and attributes, hope naturally revives because you are reminded that your problem is small compared to His power. Hope in Allah also shapes how you view your past. Instead of seeing only mistakes and regrets, hope allows you to see opportunities for forgiveness and growth. No matter how far someone feels they have fallen, the door of repentance remains open. As long as there is breath, there is hope. Even when the outcome is not what you wished for, hope remains relevant. Because hope is not limited to worldly results. The believer hopes for reward, for closeness to Allah, for peace in the heart, and for success in the hereafter. This broader vision prevents hope from collapsing when one specific door closes. There will be moments when hope feels heavy to carry, when exhaustion whispers that it is easier to stop expecting anything. In those moments, remind yourself that hope is not about certainty, it is about trust. Trust that Allah knows, Allah sees, and Allah cares, even when answers are delayed. Holding on to hope does not weaken you, it sustains you. It gives you the strength to keep praying, to keep striving, and to keep believing that Allah's mercy is nearer than your despair. When everything else fails, hope in Allah remains a lifeline that never snaps. So never let hope expire. Not because life is always easy, but because Allah is always near. As long as He is your Lord, mercy is possible, change is possible, and relief is possible, often in ways you could never have planned or imagined. My dear brothers and sisters, the journey of prayer is not measured by the speed of results, nor by the shape we expect the answers to take. It is measured by the persistence of the heart, the sincerity of the effort, and the trust we place in Allah at every step. When we pray, we are not merely asking for change around us. We are opening the door to transformation within us. Each dua softens the hearts, strengthens faith, refines character, and brings us closer to our Creator. Do not despair when answers are delayed. Do not be discouraged when outcomes differ from expectation. Every trial, every moment of patience, every tear shed in sujood is a sign of Allah's care, a means of growth, and a step toward unshakable faith. Tie your camel, make your effort, and then leave the results to Allah, knowing that He is always wiser, always merciful, and always near. Pray until something happens, not just in the world around you, but in the heart within you. Pray until hope replaces doubt, patience replaces frustration, and trust replaces fear. Because when the servant prays with sincerity, consistency, and hope, they are already winning even before anything visible changes. So keep your hands raised, your heart open, and your faith alive. Keep returning to Allah again and again in every moment, in every situation, in every need. Never stop praying, never stop hoping, never stop trusting. And in that persistence, you will find that Allah's mercy was working for you all along, shaping you, guiding you, protecting you, and preparing you for the blessings He has in store. Pray, keep praying until something happens.